Eisenhower, Mr. Eisenhower, tell me why you hit the baby with a
It,
closed fist in the head.
it was out of frustration. I couldn't stop her from crying. I got upset.
Mr. Eisenhower, that was 24 years ago. You're what, 52 now?
Yes, sir.
You were in your mid 20s. You were a full grown adult.
Yes, sir.
How do you punch a baby in the head?
We are about to watch the parole journey of this monster, this father who was sentenced to 40 years in 1999 to what he did to his 7-week-old daughter. Now, this is a nearly 3-year parole journey that we're about to watch, and it's full of twists and turns. So just hang in there, and I'll unpack it with all the details with his appeal at the end.
Okay, this is the case for Paul Eisenhower, DOC number 410069, classified as a first felony offender. Offense, attempt first-degree murder. Sentencing date, March 26, 1999. Sentenced to a total of 40 years. Parole date, August 1st, 2021. Good time, April 26, 2031. Full term, February 21st, 2038. Is this information correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Ms. Teresa. Good afternoon, Mr. Eisenberg Noble. How are you?
Ashley, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine, sir.
Good, good. I was just about to ask you, Mr. Eisenhower, could you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good. Let me get to my presentation again. Now, I see that you had a jury trial. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what were you found guilty of?
Attempted first-degree murder.
Okay, attempted first-degree murder. On your rap sheet, they had first-degree murder. And I was wondering, how did you get convicted of first-degree murder and have a 40-year sentence? So it was attempted first-degree murder.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Eisenhower, you are currently 52 years old, and you've been incarcerated for 24 years on a 40-year sentence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you've served about 60% of your sentence.
Yes, sir.
You're first a felony offender, and this is the only arrest on your record.
Yes, sir.
But your offense really concerns me, Mr. Eisenhower. How could an individual with a closed fist hit a 7-year-old baby in the head that caused multiple fractures of the skull? Tell me what happened.
That morning, my ex, Lisa Krause, who'll be speaking, had gone to work. I was left alone with my baby girl. She started crying. I did what I thought I could do to stop the crying by feeding her, changing her, what I was taught, what I was trained to do. I put her down after, she stopped crying. A few minutes after she stopped crying, I put her down. She started crying again. So again, I picked her up, held her, did the same process over. The only problem is I never fed her this time. I checked her diaper. She was fine. She did.
Mr. Eisenberg, Mr.
Eisenhower.
Mr. Eisenhower, tell me why you hit the baby with a closed fist in the head.
It was out of frustration. I couldn't stop her from crying. I got upset.
Mr. Eisenhower, that was 24 years ago. You're what, 52 now?
Yes, sir.
You were in your mid-20s. You were full-grown adult.
Yes, sir.
How do you punch a baby in the head? That's what I want to know. Frustration is not enough. Were you on alcohol or drugs?
No, sir. I didn't do drugs and I didn't drink. I didn't do alcohol.
So you had an anger management problem.
Yes, sir. I did.
And knowing this, you were left alone with the baby.
Yes, sir.
Any other circumstances around the offense?
None.
Mr. Eisen, Noble, babies cry. They cry, they poop on themselves, and they sleep. That's all they do. And we are put here as an adult, as parents, to care for those until they can care for themselves.
Yes, sir. I understand that.
I just can't wrap my head around someone with a closed fist hitting their biological child or any other child for any reason. So let's move on. I see where you've earned 300 days of good time. Tell me about your programs.
I've put for programs in the past, but I've never heard back to get into them. The most recent class I took in a program I was in was anger management class, or KJ to learn to deal with my anger issues. That was really the only class I've taken so far.
But your master record has that you've accumulated 300 hours of good time. So there must be some other programs that you've taken.
I spent 18 months to 2 years in the trade school here studying electronics. I graduated with a diploma in electronics, and I've also graduated from the faith-based program they have here at DCI. Would be the other program.
So the only good time program that you've taken is anger management.
That'd be the only one.
So tell me, what did you get out of anger management?
That my personality, I'm a passive aggressive person. One minute I can be the nicest guy in the world. The next minute I can get into an argument. I could be very aggressive with people. I've learned that sometimes when somebody says things to you, hurt you, that it's best to walk away, which I've done a lot in the past. Walk away from verbal arguments or confrontations.
I see where you've lost, excuse me, I see where you've lost 76 days of good time, but all of those lost days were restored. Tell me about your disciplinary record.
My last write-up is 2007. I had been writing and in a relationship with a woman. She had stopped writing me. I sort of got a little upset. I told her that I was going to beat up her son. That was my last write-up. Before that, I believe my other disciplinary reports were a couple of work offenses.
What was the 30B about?
That was the one involving the woman's son that was here at DCI with me back in 2007.
Now, think carefully. Was that before anger management or after anger management?
That was before I took it.
What was the 22 about?
That thing, 22, I don't even know what a Rule 22 is.
Theft.
Oh, that would have been Angola. What it is I played summer league basketball up in Angola. I had left my ID on the bench to attend the canteen when I came back from the canteen, but an inmate that looked just like me had taken my ID and used my ID in the canteen. So when I confronted the people about it, they accused me of theft, saying that I was the one who made the canteen. That's what that would be about.
Okay. But you have drastically improved your disciplinary conduct. You hadn't had a disciplinary write-up in 14 and a half years, and you should be commended for that.
Thank you.
Now, according to my records, and you may have forgotten, you've completed 100 hours pre-release. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I have.
So anger management and 100 hours pre-release.
Yes, sir.
So that's where the 300 hours comes from. 180 hours for anger management and 120 days for pre-release.
I think that's where it came from.
Okay. At this point, I see that you have served our country in the military. Which branch of the military did you serve in?
I served in the United States Army as the 1st Infantry Division for 3 years, based out of Fort Riley, Kansas, and I'm a 1991 Gulf War veteran.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And also congratulations on being awarded the Louisiana Veterans Honor Medal by Governor John Bell Edwards in 2017.
Thank you. That meant the world to me to get that.
You have no supervision history. There is no comment from the legal community, and the victims wish to make no comment. You have a low risk assessment, you have a low needs assessment, and you are in medium custody. Warden Bickham, is there a reason why he's in medium custody?
Yes, sir. It looks like yes, it is. He actually was in minimum custody, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he decided he did not want to be minimum and was moved back to medium. He made the choice that he wasn't comfortable in that setting and came back to the medium.
Okay. I see you have 15 years of education. So tell us about your education. I see where you were a draftsman at one time.
I was. I had attended Delgado, but because I suffered from dyslexia, school was getting hard for me. So I dropped out and joined the military. After I got honorably discharged from the military, I came back. I attended a Louisiana Technical College on Airline Highway in Metairie, where I studied structural drafting, pipe drafting, technical drafting, where I competed in the Vickers Skill Olympics and won a bronze medal. Because I attended that trade school, companies would send representatives to come interview people. Because I was so advanced, I was offered a job. Therefore, I worked as a draftsman on the streets for maybe 4.5, 5 years before this incarceration.
Mr. Eisennoble, this is meant for motivation. The dyslexia is a common problem. I am dyslexic. Don't ever let that disability stop you from doing anything. We just have to work a little harder to do the same thing somebody else does.
Yes, sir.
It's a disability that can be conquered.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
You have a good institutional record. Tell us about your transition plan.
Can you repeat that,
Transition
sir?
plan.
Oh, my sister plans to let me stay with her. I have one of her neighbors or friends, a man I don't even know, is willing to help me with some job opportunities. You know, I'm going to take those job opportunities and make the best of them. I plan on going to the VA, apply for my VA card, VA benefits. Any available help I can get, I'm going to take. But I do plan on getting a job as soon as I possibly can upon release.
So you're gonna stay with Miss Lisa?
Yes, sir, my sister.
Okay. Have we touched upon drugs? Have you ever used any illegal drugs?
I've never used any type of narcotics at all.
Have you ever had a problem with alcohol?
No, sir, I haven't.
So basically, this is an offense because of an anger management problem.
That's what it was, sir. Yes, sir.
Warden Bickham, would you like to make any comments, remarks, or observations?
Yes, right. As you noted, he does have a good institutional record. Slightly limited on the programming side of things, but he does have a good institutional record. And the trustee status we talked about earlier, I think he had done they don't get to choose whether that. I want to restate that he actually had done protection concerns is how he's a medium security now. But
Okay.
That's it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Warden. Mr. Chairman?
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Bonnie, you got your hand up?
I do. Thank you. Mr. Eisenhower, how are you this afternoon?
Doing fine, ma'am.
First, did the baby survive?
Yes, she did. She's a full-grown woman. She turns 25 December 28th of this year, if my math's right.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'll tell you what I'm concerned about in this case. You've done well, abiding within the rules. That's not the issue. But the thing that concerns me is most of your programming has centered around getting vocational education, technical certifications. That seems to have been your primary focus. The only programs you've done some faith-based programs, but were anger management and the 100 hours of pre-release. I don't see anything that shows you spent a whole lot of time on trying to figure out, the incident with the woman who cut off relationships with you. Your response was to threaten to harm her son. That's a pretty big deal to me, particularly in light of the nature of your crime. And it seems as if you've just kind of taken that and you set that off to the side and you've just worked on getting educational credentials and you haven't done a whole lot of work on you as a human being to make sure that whatever issues caused you to harm that baby and whatever issues caused you to become so angry that this woman didn't want to be in a relationship, that you resorted to wanting to threaten her son. Those things aren't very comforting to me. And when I look at the fact that you haven't taken programs to address those internal issues, causes me some concern. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm concerned. I see a guy who just talks about his accomplishments and the certifications in technical fields, but I just don't see that you've done a lot of that internal work that you need to do to work on why it is that you have this capacity to allow anger to cause you to either actually harm people or threaten to harm people. So tell me, why is it you have not taken more character-based programs, more programs to help you understand why you acted the way you did?
I've applied numerous times in the past for character counts classes, living in balance classes, parent classes, tried to get into them because I know I need them, but I never heard any reply back, and I had never seen my name on any call outs for them. So I had just given up on it. After a couple of years of trying, I just gave up on trying to get into classes. Not saying I didn't need them. I just gave up.
Right. And the thing is, there are other people who've had sentences as long as yours, and they've gotten into those programs. So I'm just concerned that you haven't worked on that aspect of your life. Not the certifications, not the technical classes, but those things that really get to the heart of who you are and why you respond the way that you you do in situations. So that's my concern, and I wanted to bring that to your attention, all right?
In pre-release, they did briefly teach us a little
I
about
know, but it's
parenting,
briefly,
parenting,
right?
basically a little about character, living in balance.
Right, but
how
it's
to live a
not,
better
but
life.
they're covering a lot of, they're hitting on a lot of topics, and they don't really spend a whole lot of time on any given area, because they just can't because of the number of modules involved. But I think, there's a lot more programming that you need to address your character and your personality, and to understand, who you are and why you respond to situations the way you do. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Wise.
Okay, at this time, I see the speaker here today is Sister Lisa. If you would, go ahead and unmute your mic and you give your statement, brief statement.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I will provide Paul a safe and stable environment. He will have his own room and his own bathroom, and there's a bus stop within a short walk of where I live, so that until he has the money to get a car, he'll have transportation available. I own my own home. He will be allowed to stay here as long as he meets the conditions of his parole, of course, but also I'll have some rules like no lying, no stealing, absolutely no violence towards anyone in our family or towards our mother. We would really, really love to have him come home because she's in cognitive decline. She's 84 years old. She still remembers who he is and asks about him often and would love to see him. And I would love for him to be able to see her while she still remembers who he is. As Paul mentioned, I do have a friend who has offered to help Paul find a job. Unfortunately, Paul did not provide some of the information that we had requested before this session. So I can't speak to exactly what my friend can do for him, but we'll do our best to make sure that he finds employment that he enjoys. There are several businesses within walking distance of where I live that all have help wanted signs out. So I'm sure he can get his foot in the door somewhere to get himself started. And I'll be happy to help him with whatever I possibly can. I will admit that my help in terms of providing transportation will be a little bit limited. I do care for our mother. And so my priority, of course, is to be with her when she has needs. But as much as I'm available, I'll make sure that he gets where he needs to go. But he also is old enough that he needs to take some responsibility for himself. I have every reason to believe that he's matured since he was incarcerated and that we won't have any repeats of the problems that he had before he was incarcerated. However, I have to admit that I was not aware of the situation with the son of the woman he was writing to.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, I see in speaking today in opposition, be a speaker, Miss Lisa. Miss Lisa, if you would unmute your mic.
Yes, sir. I'm Megan's mom. She's a beautiful young lady. Yes, she is. Mentally, she will never be at the age that she should be. Physically, same thing. She will never be able to walk right. She's had multiples of surgeries, multiples of testing done. I've pushed her in school. She did graduate high school, twice for that matter. But her whole life is revolved around disabilities. We can never let her have a relationship. We can never let her cook. We can never let her play certain things at the park. We have to watch every person that she talks to because her mental capacity it's just not right. It's not there. It's not where she can make the better choices. For instance, we had two guys show up at my house, told her that your mom said we could take your van, convinced her that it was perfectly fine, and we had half of our county looking for her. I'm blessed that the doctors that we have and the cops that are in our area, they do know us. They are very familiar with Megan. She's been a big part of our community. I've worked very hard to get her to where she is. And it's been a long 24 years. To this day, it's been long. She wants a job, but there's not much that her ability is there for her. She's my baby. I mean, I really don't, I will protect her till the day I die. And beyond that, I already have her protected. She does not like to talk about the situation. And actually, when she turned, she was 14 or 15 is when she finally came out and asked us, why is her name different? Why was she so different? And the hardest thing in my life outside of this day was trying to explain to her what had happened to her. And she's still mad at me. She's mad at me over why did I let it happen? I had to explain to her that I was at work, but still in her ways, it's not that way. I was her mom. I'm still her mom. I am everything to Megan. We did not actually even let her know about today. So again, I'm going to get yelled at by her. But Megan could have been, you never know, but to where she's at now, it's taken a lot of work. It's taken a lot of therapy, a lot of doctors, a lot of prayers. I have an amazing teacher that to this day, even though she's graduated, helps me with her when I don't know how to make those decisions. I mean, I don't know how to deal with certain things. I do have a good support group for her. She does have two younger siblings now, two sisters that will do anything in the world for her. That is, all of us has teamed up and kept Megan going. I will never, ever in a million years lock my daughter up. It will never be a choice. It will never be anything where she has to be punished over this. I love my daughter, and whatever gets thrown at us next, we're about to do a psychiatric evaluation on her that will tell us her IQ. And when I got the paper about this, I kind of flipped out, and I do not want to strip Megan of what's left in her life. As long as I know she is safe, I will never go to that point, but I've already gone through a lawyer. I've already done what I had to do. I just prefer not to put Megan through any more that she doesn't have to go through.
We got to go ahead and finish up our statement.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank
you. Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
ma'am.
may I ask Ms. Krause a question, please?
Okay.
Ms. Krause?
Yes, sir.
And you don't have to answer this question, but are you taking a position on the early release of Mr. Eisenberg? Eisenberg?
I honestly, I don't know how I feel.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
I just don't know. I'm sorry.
That's sufficient. I just wanted to know if you had a position, and I don't really have one. I don't know how I feel. It's sufficient. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very much. At this time, Paul, anything you'd like to say to the board before we vote?
I'd just like to say, what I did was wrong. It's disturbing. It was heinous. I want to apologize to everybody involved for hearing about what I did. I want to apologize to Lisa. I let her down. I let Megan down. It hurts me to hear what she's going through right now. You know, I've regretted for the past 24 years my actions. And like I said, hearing how she's doing now hurts me even more, all because of what I did. I just want to say sorry to everybody involved.
Okay, the time the board be voting. Start, Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Eisenhower, I don't really think you're ready right now, but I think you can get ready in a short period of time. I have to take in consideration that you served 60% of your sentence. You have a good disciplinary record. You have positive remarks by Warden Bickham. You have a low risk assessment, but you are deficient in programs. I agree with Ms. Wise. And one part of rehabilitation is to get some programs under your belt so you can better understand your offense. And when you are released, you can avoid the pitfalls that you once fell into. So I'm going to take everything into consideration, and I'm going to grant you conditionally. And that decision is based on the answers that Warden Bickham gives me next. Is there nurturing parenting at DCI?
Yes, sir.
Is there thinking for a change?
Yes, sir.
Is there victim awareness?
Yes, sir.
So based upon the availability at your present facility, my vote is to grant you conditional release upon completion of nurturing parenting, thinking for a change, and victim awareness. You have 9 months in which to complete those 3 programs. If you do not complete those programs, this decision will be rescinded. Your release is dependent upon completing those 3 programs. After release, I want you to have a curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I want you to enroll in ongoing anger management classes for the duration of your supervision.
Yes, sir.
I want you to reinforce that anger management. And I want you in anger management classes after release for the duration of your supervision.
Yes, sir.
And I'm also going to put a no contact provision on your supervision. You are not to contact the victim or the victim's family unless a request comes from the victim to your parole officer. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
That means if you see the victim or any member of our family in Walmart and you're at the checkout counter, leave the groceries and exit immediately.
Yes, sir.
You should not occupy the same space as the victim. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Ms. Jackson?
All right, Mr. Eisenhower, I concur with Mr. Roche. I think you do need some more programs. So I will also grant conditions on your completion of thinking for a change, nurturing parenting, and victim of awareness. So that's my vote.
Thank you.
At this time, my vote is going to be to deny. I'm voting to deny. I want you to finish all those programs and get that all behind you before you come up for the next hearing. That'll be my vote. Teresa, where does he stand on this vote?
Give me a moment. I'll look. Mr. Eisenvogel, have you completed pre-release?
I have.
You've been granted today.
Okay, the vote was to grant. My vote was to deny. Thank you very much. That'll conclude the hearing.
Okay, I had to think how I was going to unpack this because we're still just about halfway through this parole journey. There are going to be some twists and turns, like I said, and some surprises. So I don't want to spend too much time unpacking this. We do have the appeal to go through if you want to see the brutality and details of this monster who clearly has no empathy, probably as much empathy as Mr. Jim Wise. My least, I think everyone's most, I wouldn't say least favorite, I think despised parole board member. He's like a clown. I mean, he cuts off the mother who you could have let her go on for a few more minutes. You could have said it nicely. No, he cuts her off. And then when Mr. O'Shea comes in, like the victim's advocate that he is, and says, can I ask her something? And Jim Wise, like a little baby, pouted, like pouting. It was like, okay, it's insane. And then I feel like you might say, well, at least Jim Wise denied, and the other members didn't deny. Yeah, but Jim Wise denied what he said. What he said made no sense. He said, I'm going to deny because you don't have programs. But they said your parole is on condition of the program. So it's my belief that he wasn't even listening, or that he was just upset that Mr. O'Shea said that, and he wanted to he was like taking it personally. To think that Jim Wise was the most veteran parole board member, I think, in the history of Louisiana parole. I think he was on the board for 16 years before he finally got off. And it just goes to show, for those of you who watched on my second channel, all the states that I cover, the 5 other states, how parole boards, I think justice is sometimes can be defined by who is on a parole board. And one person can mess it all up. And that's intense to think about. And we see it in Iowa, we see it in Connecticut, and it's disturbing. Now, like I said, we still have much more of this parole journey to go through, and I don't want, and I need to think of the rhythm. So what we're gonna do is I'll save the appeal. I'll save, you know what? Let me just go through some of it with you for 2 minutes, and then we'll jump into his next hearing. Just so you can get as much of it. I mean, not that you need any more of it, but it's quite long. But basically, they took the baby to the doctor, and he started to make up excuses. About how their baby was hurt. So the emergency room physician, Dr. Krill, examined Megan and diagnosed her to be in shock with a temperature of 91 degrees. He observed a large swelling in her head, and her eyes were deviated to the left. He stated that Megan was moving all of her extremities but was grunting and probably did not have enough brain function to cry. Dr. Creel stabilized Megan and called Dr. Joseph, a pediatric neurosurgeon, to Children's Hospital. With the consent of Lisa, was transported to the Children's Hospital. Dr. Creel was told that the defendant had bumped by the defendant. The defendant had bumped the baby's head into the side of a door, but he felt Megan's injuries were not consistent with that story. He further testified that his medical impression was that Megan was critically injured and close to death. He stated that a layperson should have known that Megan was injured because the side of her head was discolored and was swollen 25 to 33%. Remember, he was found guilty of attempted murder. He testified that Megan was making funny noises and breathing strangely. He thought the swelling would have occurred within a few minutes following the injury. In his first statement, which the jury heard, the defendant told Snow that the injury to Megan occurred when he tripped over a laundry bag while holding her. Megan's head into the door. Lieutenant Snow called Dr. Nadell after taking the statement, was told that Megan's injuries were not consistent with the defendant's story. Lieutenant Snow relayed the information to the defendant, at which point he gave another statement. So again, it's quite a long appeal, and I know that we're going to be here for a little while. So what I'll do is I'll go over it more near the end. But Mr. O'Shea, I have no doubt, would have denied his parole if the victim who was there would have asked for it to be denied, and she didn't make it clear, and that's why we had the grant. Also before I missed this part, I have here in my notes, when Mr. O'Shea that he's dyslexic, and he said that was touching to me. I'm diagnosed dyslexic. I've never had a passing report card. I'm horrible at tests. I struggle. And I was diagnosed so many years ago. Before they're still trying to figure out when they were going through the diagnosis process, they actually thought I had bad vision. They thought that I was not focusing. I remember there was it was such a struggle for me. I've been put back grades. So it was touching to hear Mr. O'Shea say that he too is dyslexic. It just makes me love him even more. Very special to hear that. Anyways, we're going to jump forward to a little bit more than a year and see how he did with his programs. And it doesn't stop there. Anyways, let's go.
Good afternoon. The Committee on Parole is reconvening. At time is 1:09 p.m. Would the offender please introduce yourself?
My name's Paul Eisnogel.
How you doing, Mr. Eisnobel?
Can you repeat that, sir?
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine, sir.
I was on your last parole panel. And,
I do remember you.
and give us your Department of Corrections ID.
410069.
And we've been before this, so you know the process. I'm going
Yes,
to
sir.
read some to the record. Warden, make remarks. Then we're going to hear from your and you have a guest at Dixie. Would you please introduce your guest?
My guest is my sister, Lisa Eisnogel,
Okay,
who agreed to take me in.
right. Okay. We granted you in February of last year, right?
Yes, sir.
And we basically said that you needed to complete 3 programs.
Yes, sir.
And you completed all 3 of those programs. With the 3rd program, you didn't complete within a 9-month period. So therefore, we had to rescind that decision and give you a new hearing.
I'm fine with that.
So in between the time I signed the rescind order, you have completed the 3rd program. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. That would have been Thinking for a Change was the final class I was in.
And just tell us what 3 classes we asked you to complete.
The first one was the Nurturing Parenting. The second one was the victim impact, and the third was the thinking for a change.
Okay. And you completed all three of those programs. But it was ordered by the board, but you didn't do it in 9 months.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you had any disciplinary write-ups since the last hearing?
No, I haven't.
And by virtue of Mr. Huntley being present, we have a good transition plan with the Louisiana Parole Project. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. A few months ago, I had contacted my sister to ask Mr. Huntley for some help. And most recently, I've been accepted into their program. If I get granted parole again, I would go to Baton Rouge for a short term where they'd help me transition back into society. Counseling, classes, whatever I need.
And where's your permanent transition plan at?
That's gonna be with my sister out in Kenner, Louisiana,
Okay.
once I complete the program.
One Baker,
Yes, sir.
any comments or concerns since our last hearing?
No, sir. Hadn't been any changes except he completed those 3 classes.
Now, Mr. Huntley is present. Mr. Huntley, would you tell us briefly what his transition plan looks like?
Yes, sir. If this board grants Paul his release, he would first immediately release to Louisiana Parole Project, where he will take part in phase 1 of our residential reentry program in Baton Rouge. During that time, we will work with him on his transition with programming to help him with technological literacy, financial management, social norms, among other topics. We'll ensure that he has services to ensure he has health insurance coverage, that he has his doctor appointments taken care of, and that he has a mental health and substance abuse evaluation and support from our staff social worker, and we'll work with him to ensure that he understands what next steps he needs to take. Most importantly, for a minimum of 1 year, even after he completes phase 1, he will receive case management services from one of our reentry specialists. Based on his institutional record, we have a high degree of confidence in Paul's success.
Thank you, Mr. Huntley. Mr. Eisenhower, since you have positive remarks by Warden Bickham, you have completed everything that the parole board has required of you before release. You have a permanent residency plan with your sister, Lisa Eisenhower, in Canada, Louisiana. I'm going to expedite this hearing. If your sister don't mind.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And I'm going to grant your early release because you have fulfilled all requirements ordered by the board. You have a curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. And you are to do community service 4 hours a month. And if NAAA is necessary, it will be directed by your parole officer. Do you understand the conditions?
Yes, sir, I do.
Ms. Wise?
It was a pleasure meeting you today, Paul. You worked hard. I see the family resemblance in you two. You're almost twins from this point.
Thank you.
I wish you well. My vote is to grant for the reasons already stated on the record. Best wishes to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And my vote is the same. I concur with my colleague. My vote is to grant.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Mr. Eisenhower, this was not a regular parole hearing. This is a reset, and you have done everything that we require of you. So your early release has been granted. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
So they granted, but again, this parole journey is not over. So the first hearing we saw was 2/18/2022. As we saw, he didn't complete it in the 9 months. So who knows why? Maybe it was the dyslexia thing. That was 1/23/2023. And now we are going to come back to 10/15/2024 because guess who's back? And 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 I would say a million years you would never be able to guess what he is potentially getting revoked for. It has something to do well, we'll go in and see it. It's really just something else. It's I guess not what you'd expect, but at the same time, maybe what you'd expect. Before I do that, I forgot to bring up his sister's statement in the first hearing and how it was like there are certain supporters you don't want. Her statement was awful. But anyways, okay. Let's go say hello to our little friend.
My name is Paul Eisenogel. My DOC is 410069.
So, Mr. Eisenogel, the matters before us today is that you have been accused of violating 2 conditions of parole, number 4 and number 13. I'm going to read those conditions and then I'm going to ask you to provide a plea of guilty, not guilty, or guilty with a statement. Condition number 4 indicates that you engaged in criminal activity by altering the routing number on a check. The check amount was for $35,000 and dated August 23rd, 2024. How do you plead on that?
I'll plead not guilty.
Okay. And condition number 13, as a criteria condition for your parole, you were required to perform community service 4 hours a month, attend AA/NA meetings as directed by your PMP officer, and enroll in anger management. And you have not provided documentation. How do you plead?
I'm going to plead not guilty.
Okay. We also have in attendance Mr. Andrew Hundley with the Louisiana Parole Project, and he would like to speak. So we will give him the opportunity to speak first before we begin our questioning. Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to appear. I wanted to give some background on this because obviously from the records you have, we wouldn't be here if I would not have brought this matter up to the authorities. So the date that was mentioned, our organization had received notification from our bank that there was a check that was presented from Paul Eisenogel, the amount of $35,000. We have some controls on our bank account that this would have never gone through because of the controls that we have. But the immediate concern that I had with the information that I had was this check was presented. This was obviously a fraudulent check. I informed probation and parole because I was concerned about the state of mind that the client may be to provide this check. So immediately that was our first concern. After being able to do some investigation and find out more about the situation, we learned a lot more. First and foremost, and I don't mean to speak negatively about Paul, but one of the surprises when we know about Paul was the seeing beyond his capacity to be able to produce a check that had our routing number at the bottom. He doesn't have the technical abilities to do something like this, so this was sort of surprising to us. We were able to get access to his telephone and go through it. After speaking to Paul, he admitted that he had been communicating with someone online for several months that he gave access to his bank account to, among other things. And what it appears to us after looking at the phone was that this third party had access, created this check, told him a story that they were going to transfer their business into his name. Just this really convoluted story that I think that the average person would not make sense. They sent him the check, told him, write this check to yourself, deposit it, bring it to your bank, the money is going to end up in your account. He believed it, he fell for it. And part of the reason that it was really easy for this to be tracked through our bank is because the bank we use for our account is the same bank that we open up our clients' accounts for. So it's the same account. So he walked in with this fraudulent check to the bank that we do business at and he has an account at. So I'm not here today to make excuses for Paul, but I wanted to clarify that when this first was brought to our attention, it appeared Paul concocted a scheme, which would not be very smart, but it appeared that he was trying to take money from us. What it appears now is that he very naively allowed someone else, a fictitious, a person who obviously wasn't who they said they were to him, that he had been communicating with for months. He allowed them access to his personal account. They produced this check, mailed it to him, had him fill it out, he deposited it, and it's where we're at today. As an organization, we did our due diligence by informing probation and parole of what happened. We completed a report with the proper authorities. It is not our intention to pursue charges against Mr. Eisenagel through the criminal legal system. We recognize that the parole board has their own decisions to make. In a perfect world, we would pursue charges against the person who catfished him and created this check, but there's no way for us to determine who that person is. I'm happy to answer any other questions related to that. As it relates to the charge on his AA volunteering and anger management, I obviously defer to the board and to the parole officer for whatever information they have. Just going over case notes that our staff social worker and case managers have in his record, we show that he informed us that he was attending AA meetings, and we show that our staff social worker had coordinated meetings with a counselor for anger management sessions. I can't confirm to you that he personally attended any of those. I can tell you that he told our staff he did. Just in conclusion, I would like to say that Paul has been employed by the same company for 11 months before he was revoked. That's Imperial Trading Company in Jefferson Parish. They've indicated that in a world that he's not revoked, that his job would be available to him, and they hired him back because he was a good employee. I'm not naive myself, and I understand that there's some sort of sanction at a minimum that Paul needs to face for his actions, whether that be work release or some other things. Just wanted to let the board know that outside of these incidents, we feel like Paul, from the standpoint of working and reacclimating with the community, has been doing a good job in meeting most of the expectations. Parole Project would be willing to still be there for Paul and provide any services that the board would see fit if the board determines not to revoke his parole. And I stand by to answer any questions that will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dodson, do you have any questions, Mr. Hunley, or of the offender?
No, I don't have any questions of Mr. Hunley.
And of the offender?
Yes. So, Mr. Eisenogel, had you ever met this person that coerced, as you claim, coerced you into doing this?
No, ma'am.
How did you communicate with them?
I had met her on social media. I first met her on TikTok, the app TikTok. Then our chat and conversation carried over to another app known as Telegram. And from there, our friendship blossomed into, I guess you could say, a relationship. But I've never seen her before.
You had never seen her before?
Just on social media, just on the video she posted, that's all.
And how long did you, Mr. Hunley mentioned, but how long was this relationship?
7 to 8 months we have been speaking.
So what did she tell you that you gave her your personal information?
She told me, you know, she was a content creator. She was unhappy with her company, that she was going to leave her company, but for her to receive the money that they owed her, she would need my account information. That the only way for her to get money was to use my account. And I was foolish enough to actually give it to her. I believed in her and I trusted her.
Somebody you'd never met?
Yeah, somebody I've never met.
And so what were you thinking when you went, did you go actually present this check to the bank to try to deposit it?
She was giving me directions. She told me to do it through an ATM deposit. So I did it through an ATM deposit on my lunch break at work.
It just makes no sense to me, Paul, that you didn't suspect that you were doing anything wrong.
When I did this, I had no idea. I'm thinking, you know, she hadn't lied to me. She hadn't done anything wrong until now. But I never suspected her of, you know, using me like this. You see what I'm saying?
No.
I never
I hear you. I hear you, but no.
I never knew that, you know, this check was, I thought it was a good check. I believed every word she said. I did not know that it was going to be a bad check. Because I haven't seen checks in so long. I've never dealt with checks in so long. I figured it was a good one.
So when you're paid by your employer, they do a direct deposit?
Yes, ma'am, ADP. Now, here's the funny thing. I trusted her so much, even after I gave her my information, she never stole from me. She never got in my account.
I'd say she stole a lot from you.
I mean, she stole, but she never used my account to take my paycheck money.
Mm-hmm.
That was always in there. I guess you say that's one reason why I trusted her. That's why I did what I did, but, you know, I had no intention of doing it. I sure didn't expect the outcome.
So you were, let's see, you've been detained since August 28th?
August 26th.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, tell us about the community service. Why haven't you shown documentation that you've done or whatever, all the special conditions, the community service, the AA, anger management?
I have presented some documentation at the last minute to my case manager who works for LPP that I have been doing AA, anger management. There were some links on the phone. I had done a few sessions with Daryl Renfro of Renfro and Associates. I had tried to contact him again to get some more sessions scheduled, but he never contacted me back. As far as the community service, not doing it, you know, I have been incarcerated for so long. I'm so used to people helping me, you know, with things. I expected my parole officer would help me with the community service, but he never did. I never took the initiative, you know, to actually look for community service because I didn't know how to go about doing it. I was expecting help again to do it instead of taking the initiative to do it myself. Like I said, I'm so used to, like I said, I was incarcerated for 25 years. I'm used to people, you know, helping me, looking out for me, doing things for me.
Yep. All right. I'm going to just sit back and listen.
Ma'am?
Ms. Ledoux, I have no other questions.
Thank you. Mr. Prater? You're muted, sir.
You gave yes, sir, you gave this lady you met on TikTok the routing number and the check number or whatever from Project Parole. She then sent you checks with that on your checks. Is that correct?
Here's the thing, I did not send her, I don't know how she got my routing number and my account number. What I had given her was my username and my username and my password to my account. I never actually gave her my router number or my account number. I don't know how she got that. But
Where did you get the check that you had?
She had, in one of my chats and one of my text orders, she had mentioned that I had some checks coming through the mail that were going to link up to her company's account. So I waited for them and I got them. I told her I got them. That's when she had mentioned to me, to write a check for so much, go to the ATM and see what happened from there. The checks were delivered to me through the mail.
Okay.
But I knew nothing. I gave her no information as far as my routing number and my account number, just my username and my password to my account. And
So all of a sudden these checks show up at your house, and so you write one for $35,000 to yourself. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Intending to do what with that $35,000?
She told me in one of her texts to me that the money, she wanted me to send her some via gift card.
Okay. I don't have any questions. That's a typical scam deal, but okay.
Thank you.
I have no further questions. I don't know, did I ask you if you had a piece of paper in front of you that showed that you were not eligible for appointed counsel? I want to make sure that I took care of that.
I got this parole revocation questionnaire. Is that the paper you would be talking about?
That's correct. That's correct.
I got that one. It's in front of me.
Okay, so you're not eligible for appointed and you did not have an attorney that you hired to be here today.
No, ma'am.
I just want to do that little housekeeping. I think at this time the panel is prepared to vote. Ms. Renatza?
Yes, I am struggling with it a little bit because Mr. Eisenagel, I do believe that you had experienced some of this kind of scam activity in the past and you should have spotted it. But I do believe that you were taken advantage of. I don't believe that you had intent to defraud the Parole Project. I'll say that. I don't think I'm talking, listen, I'm not asking, I'm just saying that. But I do also believe that there needs to be consequences for your actions. I don't think revocation is quite the solution. And I don't know that sending you work release would be the solution because I believe you still have your job available at Imperial Trading.
Yes, ma'am.
But I do. So my vote is going to be: do not revoke, reprimand you, add special conditions. I think that you need to have and I don't really know what the class would be to help you identify these sorts of fraud attempts on you. Money management, whatever it is, I don't know. I'll leave that up to your parole officer.
Yes,
They'll
ma'am.
know where to send you. And you need to enroll and complete that class. I'm just one vote though, but that's how I vote.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Ryder?
I'll concur with that. I'm at a loss. I don't know if there's some way we could cause you to stay off of social media.
You can, for a period of time, you can add that as a condition if you'd like.
Because that's incredibly stupid what you've done. You don't need to be talking to women on TikTok. All that's gonna do is get you in trouble. And so I don't know. Well, I vote not to revoke you, but to keep you off of social media for a year.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now I'm serious. Hey, listen to me when I say this. I'm serious about this social media. You can't. I mean, you're supposed to prove that you were going to these meetings and you didn't prove it. Okay. If this social media deal, that's not. I'm just not bumping my gums. You understand that?
Yes, sir. I understand every word you're saying.
All right.
Full term date is 2038. Do you know
Yes,
that full term date?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm really struggling with this because I believe, contrary to what my colleagues, I believe there may have been some intent to fraud, maybe not the Parole Project, but that you may have known that this wasn't exactly kosher. You don't appear to be an intelligent individual. I will concur with my colleagues, and trust their perception on this case, and go along with the conditions that they've invoked. So today, you have not been revoked. You have some special conditions, some type of class by your probation officer that will help you with media savvy when you are allowed to return to media, which will be in a year. Maybe some financial classes. But I'd like to also stipulate that you have a closer relationship with the Parole Project. If they are going to be providing services, then I'd like to see that happen on a more regular basis.
Yes, ma'am. I really could use the help and want their help. I think I've already let my caseworker know about that. I'm willing to accept any bit of help I can get at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, you've not been revoked today, and you have some special conditions. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Well, like I said, when you think you've seen it all, a parole hearing will just bring you back to earth and say, nope, not yet. And it is. So there's a new law or legislation that was passed in Louisiana that is basically taking away parole from inmates. And this is probably why they were being, why they didn't simply revoke him, because of his full term date, which they don't usually bring up, being 2038. Otherwise, I think they would have revoked him. Or more correctly stated, is discretionary parole, which is removing. And that's part of why we're also seeing so many revocation hearings coming up, because those are afraid of getting revoked and having to serve most of their sentence, or like 80% or 90% of their sentence. So it's, it's, this just happened August 21st, 2024. Here's an article by someone saying, an act of regression, Louisiana takes a giant step backward in parole and sentencing reform. And this is the new governor that was able to get this passed through legislation. There were among hosts of other so-called tough on crime bills that were signed by the Louisiana new governor and will affect nearly everyone. Sentencings in the state after August 1st, 2024. Together, this package of aggressive bills set up prison sentence to reform back decades in the state. Although lawmakers have framed them as public safety measures, these laws will have the opposite effect in doubling the prison population, compelling billions of dollars to new prison construction. So it is my understanding that those that get revoked will have to serve out a much higher percentage of their sentence before being offered parole, or what falls under that category of discretionary parole. I'm sorry I'm not bringing more clarity to that, but I do believe that's the reason they just didn't revoke him. I mean, come on, the parole project states, "Oh, we have no proof that he attended the programs, but he told us that he did." It's like, we all know he didn't. The parole board knows he didn't. But anyways, how funny was it that he gets scammed by? It's like a classic romance scam. And for those of you who watch those YouTubers who scam the scammers, and it's incredible. I mean, it's funny. He's like, I don't know how she got the routing and account number. I only gave her my login and password. It's like, no kidding, Sherlock. I mean, like, what? And if I'm supposed to unpack what the scam was, I'm not entirely. So I think that he gave her his bank account information. She saw where maybe the direct deposit was coming from, which was the Parole Project. So the Parole Project sending him money. She then, I shouldn't even say she, it's probably a he, right? Whoever this person on TikTok was talking to, right? I think then copied or made the fake, forged the check, sent it to him, and then to get the 30K, which then he was going to go buy gift cards for. I also believe that he didn't know what he was doing, but he knew what he was doing was wrong. He probably didn't know exactly per se, but come on, it's like, where the 34K come from? Like, none of that makes any sense. So I don't know. They should have just revoked him. Remember, he basically almost killed and his daughter, which we'll go over more of that in details. But what's interesting is that people of all shapes and sizes fall for these romance scams. I wouldn't be surprised if many of you watching may have fallen for it. There's a reason they exist, and that's because people fall for it. I'm not, there are different forms and versions of it, but let me just share with you. Here is a banker who fell for it, and because of that, his bank became bankrupt. This is a story I read a little while ago, and it popped up in my mind. Cryptocurrency. Now, it was done through cryptocurrency, right? But he was a Kansas City bank CEO. He got a 24-year sentence after he looted his bank for $47 million. And it was the same type of scam, except this scam was a little more sophisticated. Basically, they set up a fake crypto exchange, all fake, and they told him to invest a little bit of money, and then they made him look he was so smart. And then over the course of years, they kept showing how smart he was, how much money he was making, and the idiot was literally, can you imagine someone drained a bank of $47 million? It just blows one's mind. But if you Google it and you want more information, you can get details on that. But I mean, I thought when I first saw this, I thought, wow, this is just great. I mean, the Parole Project they vouch for this guy, and then while they're vouching for him, he's really, in my opinion, probably not attending any programs. He then tries to steal like $30-something thousand from them, and they still come back and say, we still support our client, and the parole board let him through. And I don't know. I think they should have just revoked him, but that is part of the problem when you have more strict laws, is that it does create less. Like in Iowa, I think not why we see, but I think it plays into the problem. In Iowa, they have a really strict law, which is the most strict vote wins. So if one board member says deny and two board members say grant, the deny wins every time. There's no dynamics to that. And because of that, we see in Iowa where they all collude and just grant basically all the time. And you don't see any creativity in it. And, someone made that rule to be more strict, but really it doesn't work. So it's interesting, I think, to keep in mind all the different repercussions of making stricter rules, if that makes sense. And now we can go over more of this appeal, but I think we're going to see him back. I don't think the guy has it in him to be successful. So if we do, we'll share it here. Make sure that you hit the notification bell. And these hearings are in the playlist of the return of. So check out that playlist if you want to see more hearings like this. Now, normally I start with the third hearing first, which I could have done. I mean, I could have just started with the sheriff saying, "So you met this girl on TikTok?" And then, but I wanted to surprise you with this. So I mixed it up a little bit. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about the way that I did this versus what I've normally been doing. You know, did you like the surprise? But this is again, we'll go back to he's a monster, and in this appeal, actually the judge talks about how he showed no remorse, and you still see it to this day. Some people are just lacking empathy. But Paul appeals his conviction, attempted first-degree murder, for a sentence of 40 years imprisonment without benefit of probation or parole. You might be asking how he got parole, and that's because of Act 122, which allows anyone who served more than 20 years and above, I think, the age of 40 to get parole. And that Act 122 was passed by the Parole Project, who we just saw. The Parole Project gets money because money was diverted from the DOC to these other programs, and it makes the government look good because, like, look, fewer, there's less people incarcerated. And you go through shifts on the pendulum. Now you have a new governor. The new governor is keeping people locked up more, and the Parole Project, you got to imagine, is probably panicking because less parolees means no clients, means no money. And maybe that's why they're going to bat for this guy, because they make money if he's with them, not if he's locked up. But I hope I'm not losing you there. But the Act 122 is what set him free, and he still is free because of the Parole Project. But on April 9th, 1998, the Jefferson Parish District Attorney's Office filed a bill of information charging the defendant of attempted first-degree murder of a juvenile under 12 years of age. Also, ridiculous legislation. They have to say under 12 years of age. They can't say 7 weeks because the law doesn't allow them to say that, right? Anyways, the defendant was arraigned on April 20th, 1998, and he pled not guilty. The defendant filed a motion for sanity commission, and in July 9th, 1998, the trial court found the defendant was competent to stand trial. A 12-person jury was selected on February 22nd, 1999. On February 23rd, 1999, the trial court denied the defendant a motion to suppress X-rays and photos of the victim's surgery. Why would you not be able to show that? Trial continued February 24th, 1999, blah, blah, blah. And then by a 10-2 vote, he was found guilty. Can you imagine 2 jurors? In some states, this would have been a mistrial. But 2 jurors... like, say you're not guilty, morons. On March 26, 1999, the trial judge sentenced the defendant to 40 years imprisonment or hard labor without the benefit of parole. Okay, now he appealed. Now, the following was derived from trial testimony. This case involves the 7-week-old Megan, his daughter. Megan was born in 97. At this time, Lisa had been dating the defendant approximately 11 months. On February 18, 1990, wait a minute, and the defendant, Megan's daughter, yeah, there was a daughter to both of them. Okay. Defendant 11 months. On February 18, 1998, Lisa left for work at 6 a.m. and Megan at home, and left Megan at home with the defendant, who's her biological father, right? There's nothing. You would think you're safe. She had been to the Mardi Gras parade with Megan and the defendant the night before. So they went out as a family the night before, come back. She's a hardworking mother, a woman. Of course, he's a low-life loser, but she goes to work at 6 a.m. He stays there. Lisa testified that the defendant often awakened to feed Megan during the night, and the defendant had awakened to feed her sometime between 1 and 5 in the morning. At about 10 a.m. on February 18, 1998, the defendant called Lisa at work and told her while he was cleaning the house, he had slipped and fell on the laundry bag, hitting Megan's head into the bedroom door frame. The defendant told her that Megan was all right. Can you imagine? He said he should. Lisa asked the defendant if her daughter's head was swollen or if there were any marks on her, and the defendant replied in the negative. Nonetheless, Lisa called Sandra, the defendant's mother, and asked her to check on her. She already had, she had a mother's intuition. Sandra called the defendant in response to Lisa's request. She asked the defendant where she had bumped the baby, whether the baby's pupils were dilated, was there any vomiting, and had the baby gone to sleep? Was there swelling or discoloration? The defendant responded negatively. Lying scumbag. Lisa came back home to work early at about 1 p.m. and found the defendant holding Megan. He handed Megan to her, and she immediately noticed that Megan's head was swollen, looking like there was a softball in it. Lisa called Sandra to call the pediatrician. On the pediatrician's advice, the defendant and Lisa rushed Megan to the emergency room. And this is where they found, the horrible injuries. And the defendant testified on his own behalf. He said that Lisa became pregnant about a month and a half after they first met. He testified that he wanted to marry Lisa and that they wanted a baby. He also testified and told the jury that he had lost his job because he spent too much time at home with Lisa in pregnancy. Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The defendant testified that, you see, nothing changes. He's making the same ridiculous excuses and stories before he's locked up as he is all these years later after parole. It's like the same person. The defendant testified that on February 17, 1998, he went to Mardi Gras parade with Lisa. He told the jury that they came home and went to sleep. 1 a.m., the defendant told the jury he woke up twice during the night to feed her. After Lisa left to work in the morning, February 18, 1998, the defendant plus Megan on the bed next to him. Megan started crying. The defendant told the jury out of frustration, because I couldn't get her to stop crying, I lashed out at her while on the bed and struck her in the left side of the head. He testified that he hit her with the closed fist of his left hand. He told the jury that he was left-handed. After hitting Megan, the defendant looked at her in shock and left her on the bed. He told the jury that after he hit Megan, she was making grunting sounds. Oh, so he admitted to hitting her to the jury. The defendant left Megan. So how could two of them have found him not guilty? I guess of first-degree murder. They would have thought it was second degree. The defendant left Megan on the bed of about an hour, then moved her to the crib. He recalled that Lisa came in about 1 p.m., after which they took Megan to the hospital. He testified that although he noticed that the swelling in Megan's head progressed throughout the day, he didn't think that it was an injury. Are you freaking kidding me? A 7-week-old. This stuff is so, it just makes you shake. I just, and you see his he's still a danger. Let's just be real. He's willing to go through this internet scam and write a check for $34,000 and fall for a TikTok thing, and then with his freedom on the line, please. Please, some people deserve to just be locked up. They just don't deserve another chance, and he got the chance. Where's it? Remorse. Here it is. The testimony in this case showed that the defendant hit the victim with a great deal of force, although, as Dr. Krill testified, a layperson would have been able to notice the baby's severe swelling and discoloration. The defendant did not seek medical attention and told Lisa's mother that she seemed all right. Finally, Lieutenant Snow testified the defendant did not show any remorse for his actions or concerns for Megan, his daughter. Based on these circumstances, the extreme young age and very great vulnerability of Megan and the defendant's actions, we find the evidence was sufficient for a rational terror of the fact to find the defendant had the requisite specific intent to kill her. So 2 jurors probably thought it was, not intentional. But here he is, free again with another chance. Now, if he does come back, we'll cover it, and I think we will see him back. I don't think he has what it takes to succeed. And thank you, Sir Richard, for lining up the dots in the spreadsheet. It's incredible what Sir Richard has made to cover all these years of these parole hearings. It makes it possible to bring it to you like this. Make sure to check out that playlist, The Return of. And with that, I'll let you go.
Eisenhower, Mr. Eisenhower, tell me why you hit the baby with a closed fist in her head.
It was out of frustration. I couldn't stop her from crying. I got upset.
Mr. Eisenhower, that was 24 years ago. You're, 52 now?
Yes, sir.
You were in your mid-20s. You were a full-grown adult.
Yes, sir.
How do you punch a baby in the head?